पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ बहुत सारे महाज खुले, कुछ हमने खुद खोले और काफी सारे हमारे खिलाफ खोले गए। आज के महाज फरेब के नाम। कल हमने झूठ का महाज किया था, आपको बताया था कि पाकिस्तान के केयरटेकर प्राइम मिनिस्टर अनवर काकड़, जिन्हें हम प्यार से अंडरटेकर प्राइम मिनिस्टर अनु काकड़ कहते हैं, ने पाकिस्तान की सबसे बड़ी ऊंची लीडरशिप की सतह से कल कैसे चिल्ला चिल्ला के एपेक्स कमेटी में झूठ बोले। इससे पहले बीबीसी को जो उन्होंने मिसिंग पर्सन्स पे इंटरव्यू दिए, उसमें भी उन्होंने गलत नंबर्स यूज किए, झूठ बोला। मगर झूठ खाली बोला जाता है, फरेब रचाया जाता है। आज फरेब का महाज हो रहा है। फरेब में एक थिएटर प्रोडक्शन होती है, एक ड्रामा होता है, एक्टिंग होती है, और वो हमने आज देखी। एक मिसिंग पर्सन जिसका नाम उस्मान डार है, जो पिछले 25-30 दिन से मिसिंग था, जिसकी मां ने पिछले दिनों में ही 3-4 दिन पहले ही वीडियो अपील की थी काजी फाइजीसा साहब से कि मेरे बेटे को वापस ले आओ, मैं कुछ भी करने के लिए तैयार हूं। एक ज़ईफ औरत को मजबूर करके, एक बंदे की फैमिली को टारगेट करके, उसके बिजनेसेस बंद करके, उसको गायब करके, उसको मार के आप उस बंदे को वापस लाए। पाकिस्तान के एक मशहूर एंकर के घर में आपने उसे पेश किया। उधर वो उस एंकर ने उसके मुंह में अल्फाज भरे। इमरान खान ने क्या कहा? फिर से बोलो, इमरान 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 इमरान, जैसे हर इमरान बोलने से ज्यादा पैसे मिलते हैं, उसकी तनख्वाह इंक्रीज होती है। एनीवेज, कामरान शाहिद के बारे में ये शो नहीं है। कामरान के साथ मैंने काम किया है, उसके जो आज बिहेवियर था, पर्सनली, एथिकली, वेरी डिसअपॉइंटिंग, प्रोफेशनली, I'm dumbfounded. But this show is not about Kamran. This show is about misinformation. This show is about lying. This show is about missing people. So, support, like, subscribe, share. मगर शुरू करते हैं उस्मान डार से। उस्मान डार ने क्या कहा? लुबे लुबाब आप सबको पता है, unless you're living under a rock। उस्मान डार ने कहा कि भाई पूरा मलबा इमरान खान की गोद में के कोने में है। इमरान खान ने ये सब किया। मे 9 ने इमरान खान की स्ट्रेटजी थी। इमरान खान मास्टरमाइंड है, बाकी जो है फौज मासूम है, हम बाकी जो है लीडर मासूम है। दिस वाज एक्सपेक्टेड। जब आपके साथ 25-30 दिन आपको मिसिंग पर्सन बनाया जाता है, आप गायब होते हैं, तो यही होता है। पीटीआई की और बहुत सारी मिसालें हैं। मैं इस वक्त आपको बोर नहीं करना चाह रहा। पिछले 1.5 साल से हमने ये बहुत सारे लोग देखे हैं, खटक साहब हों और बहुत से लोग हों, दिस टू मेनी नेम्स टू नेम। मगर जो थीम है हमारी, वो मिसिंग पर्सन्स की है, जो हम कल से फॉलो कर रहे हैं। अनवर काकड़ ने कल झूठ बोला, फिर से बोला, बार बार बोला और बोलते आ रहे हैं, उनका दफ्तर बोलता आ रहा है कि पाकिस्तान में जो मिसिंग पर्सन्स हैं वो 50 के करीब उनके सूबे बलूचिस्तान में है। हमने एक रिपोर्ट शाया की, ये रिपोर्ट दबी हुई थी, इस्लामाबाद हाई कोर्ट में इस रिपोर्ट को दबाया गया था। ये रिपोर्ट पीडीएम के इत्तेहादी बीएनपी मैंगल के सरबराह सरदार अख्तर मैंगल ने इस रिपोर्ट की जो कमीशन है उसको हेड किया है। वो कह रहे हैं कि जनाब 5000 से ज्यादा इस साल के शुरू में वो उन्होंने सबमिट की रिपोर्ट कि 5000 से ज्यादा बलूचिस्तान में लोग मिसिंग हैं। रिपोर्ट के अंदर खुद चीफ सेक्रेटरी बलूचिस्तान कह रहा है, जो अनवर काकड़ का दोस्त है बाय द वे, वो खुद कह रहा है, वो कह ली कि 700 लोग हैं। कुछ लोग वापस आते हैं उस्मान डार की तरह, कुछ लोग वापस नहीं आते। आज हम उन लोगों पे कॉन्सेंट्रेट करेंगे जो 30 दिन बाद नहीं, 5-5 साल बाद वापस आते हैं। एक तो पीएम का एक और झूठ पकड़ा गया है। पीएम ने साइट किया है इसी बीबीसी इंटरव्यू में कि जो कमेटी ऑफ एनफोर्स्ड डिसअपीयरेंसेस है अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा की, उसने 50 लोगों का लिखा हुआ है। हम उसने कहा कि पाकिस्तान में 50 लोग मिसिंग हैं। हम गए, उस कमेटी की वेबसाइट पे ऐसी कोई रिपोर्ट नहीं है। पीएम साहब माजरत के साथ झूठ बोल रहे हैं। जियो फैक्ट चेक, और जियो की क्या रेपुटेशन है आपको पता है। जियो फैक्ट चेक ने भी यही फाइंडिंग्स दरियाफ्त की, उनको भी सीईडी की रिपोर्ट नहीं मिली, मगर उन्हें एक और रिपोर्ट मिली जो इंटरेस्टिंग है। 2022 मई 2022 से लेकर मई 2023 तक, मतलब जब आपने इमरान को निकाला और फिर जब आपने इमरान को पकड़ा पहली बार, उसमें खाली उस दौरानिये में 1635 मिसिंग पर्सन्स की, एनफोर्स्ड डिसअपीयरेंसेस की रिपोर्ट यूएन ने पाकिस्तान को दी हुई है। जिन दिनों में अनवर काकड़ साहब अपनी शेरवानियां तैयार कर रहे थे, सूट निकाल रहे थे, अपनी टाइयां चूज कर रहे थे कि मैं अगला प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनने वाला हूं, उन दिनों की मैं बात कर रहा हूं। खाली उन दिनों में 1635 जो लोग हैं वो यूएन ने कम्युनिकेट किया हुआ है पाकिस्तान को। अच्छा, मोर इंपॉर्टेंटली, सोने पे सुहागा, ये जो कमीशन है जिसकी जो दबी हुई रिपोर्ट है हमने एक्सक्लूसिवली आपके सामने पेश की, आज ये जियो को कहती है कि 10,000 के करीब पाकिस्तान में मिसिंग पर्सन्स अभी तक हैं। इसमें से जो इन्फोर्स डिसअपेयरेंसेस बलोचिस्तान की हैं वो तकरीबन 2700 हैं, 2700 से ऊपर। अजीब सी बात है, सबसे छोटे सूबे में सबसे ज्यादा लोग गायब हुए हैं। अनवार काकड़ का ये सूबा है। He should be ashamed of himself. उसे शर्म आनी चाहिए उसने जो ये हरकत की है। मगर ये मिसिंग पर्सन्स की थीम जो है, जिसके साथ साथ मिसिंग पर्सन्स खाली नहीं मिसिंग, प्राइम मिनिस्टर की इंटेलेक्चुअल ऑनेस्टी भी मिसिंग है। इस मिसिंग पर्सन्स की थीम के साथ साथ जो और बेवकूफियां हुई हैं उस पर ऑलरेडी हमने बात की है। इन्होंने कहा है कि भाई हिंदुस्तान में 8000 कश्मीरी गायब हैं, तो उधर तो यार 7.5 लाख काबिज फौज बैठी है ना, वो तो एक मकबूजा इलाका है। आप हिंदुस्तान के ऑक्यूपाइड कश्मीर को पाकिस्तान के बलोचिस्तान से, जो हमारा चौथा सूबा है, उससे कैसे कंपेयर कर रहे हैं? मगर ये सब बातें हो चुकी हैं। दिस शो इज नॉट अबाउट अनवर काकड़'s इंटेलेक्चुअल डिसऑनेस्टी। दिस शो इज अबाउट ओवरऑल कि एक मिसिंग पर्सन के साथ क्या होता है। अब मैंने आपको समझाया है कि मिसिंग पर्सन में उस्मान डार भी है, शेख रशीद भी है, इमरान रियाज खान भी है। कुछ लोग बाजियाब हो जाते हैं, कुछ लोग नहीं होते। कुछों को मार दिया जाता है, कुछ लोग घर आ जाते हैं। कुछों को ये, जैसे आज हमने देखा है, एक तो पहले हमने प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस वाले देखे लोग, आज हमने टॉक शो होस्ट वाले देखे लोग। तो ये दो फॉर्मूले अब लग गए हैं। तो अलग अलग मिसिंग पर्सन्स को अलग अलग तरीकों से डील किया जाता है। किसी को जिंदा गाड़ दिया जाता है, किसी को 5 साल के लिए रख लिया जाता है, किसी को 25 दिन के लिए रख लिया जाता है, जैसे उस्मान डार को। मगर आज हम आपको मिसाल बताएंगे, एक कहानी सुनाएंगे एक ऐसे लड़के की जिसे 5 साल के लिए मिसिंग किया गया। अब ये जो शो है, जो बाकी शो आप मुलाहिजा करेंगे, ये मेरा ग्रीन रूम शो है। ये शो मैंने इस साल के मार्च अप्रैल में, जब मैं पाकिस्तान में था, उस वक्त रिकॉर्ड किया था। शो को रिकॉर्ड करते ही शो की फाइल दबाई गई। मेरे जो पार्टनर्स हैं उनको प्रेशराइज किया गया, शो को बैन करने की कोशिश की गई। शुक्र अल्लाह, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, ये जो शो की रिकॉर्डिंग्स है मेरे पास थी। मेरे पार्टनर्स को ने तो जो पार्टनरशिप है वो डिसॉल्व कर दी। मगर आज ये शो आपके लिए इसलिए मैंने चूज किया है, ये वाला ग्रीन रूम, क्योंकि ये सिर्फ शहबाज तासीर, जो सलमान तासीर के बेटे हैं, सलमान तासीर को शहीद किया गया था 2011 में ब्लास्फेमी एलिगेशंस पे। उन्हीं के बॉडीगार्ड ने उन्हें मारा था। वो कहानी हमारे सामने है। कहानी पाकिस्तान की तारीख का एक अहम हिस्सा है। मगर उसी के कुछ महीने बाद उस शहादत के शहबाज को उठा लिया गया था और फिर ड्रग किया गया था। फिर पाकिस्तान की ट्रैवल एजेंसीज में इन्हें ले जाया गया था और फिर इन्हें अफगानिस्तान क्रॉस करवा दिया गया था। 5 साल इस लड़के ने गुजारे हैं पाकिस्तान, अफगानिस्तान, पहाड़ों में, जंगलों में। आईएसआई इसके पीछे लगी रही, नहीं मिला। हमेशा एक कदम पीछे होती थी। आईएसआई का क्या रोल था, फौज का क्या रोल था, शहबाज तासीर किन किन मराहिल से गुजरा। एक लाहौर अमेरिकन स्कूल का, एक एलीट फैमिली का लड़का, कैसे उसने सर्वाइव किया, उसको कैसे टॉर्चर किया गया, वो रिलीज कैसे हुआ, भागा कैसे, उसने ड्रोन अटैक्स कैसे सर्वाइव किए, उसने दहशतगर्दी के अटैक्स कैसे सर्वाइव किए, उसकी फैमिली से कैसे उसे राब्ता करवाते थे और उसको रोज कैसे ट्रीट करते थे, उसको तोड़ते कैसे थे। ये आज का महाज है। अगेन, जो मैंने थीम पकड़ी है वो मैंने मिसिंग पर्सन्स की पकड़ी है। और जो आपके साथ रोज फरेब होता है, लोगों को मिसिंग करके आपको, आपके सामने जो ड्रामा रचाया जाता है, वो भी इंजॉय करें, ये शो भी इंजॉय करें। इस शो में कोई ड्रामा नहीं है। दिस इज एन एक्चुअल टेल ऑफ टेररिज्म एंड हॉस्टेज टेकिंग। और फिर आगे जब आप शो देखते रहेंगे, आपसे ये जरूर सवाल पूछिएगा अगले चंद मिनटों में कि इस शो में ऐसा क्या था कि फौज ने इस शो को, इस इंटरव्यू को बैन करने की कोशिश की, मेरी पार्टनरशिप डिसॉल्व की, कहा कि ये टेप्स हमें दे दो, ये शो नहीं चल सकता। क्या थी ऐसी बात? फौज तो मदद कर रही थी ना तासीर फैमिली की, तो फौज ने ये शो क्यों बैन किया? सवाल बनता है। सो सवाल पूछें और फिर साथ साथ शो एंजॉय करें, शेयर करें, लाइक करें, सब्सक्राइब करें, कमेंट करें, एंड ऑफ कोर्स इंडिपेंडेंट मीडिया को सपोर्ट करें, इंडिपेंडेंट जर्नलिज्म को सपोर्ट करें, मेरे मेंबरशिप ऑप्शंस चेकआउट करें, मुझे दुआ दें, अपने माँ बाप की दुआ लें। टेक केयर, पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद, एंड एंजॉय द शो। Hello, salam, and welcome to the Green Room, the show about people, power, and the planet. मुल्क मुईशत और माहौलियात से लेकर कौम क़यादत और शायद क़यामत तक द ग्रीन रूम isn't just my show, it's our show. In fact, it is your show. So, देखें, सुने, समझें, लिंक, शेयर, लाइक और सब्सक्राइब करें, मगर एक चीज ना भूलें कि ग्रीन रूम का सिर्फ एक ही असूल है. The only rule here, literally the only rule here, is that there are no rules. We're green because we care about the country, the community, and the climate. But frankly, we're also a little red. That's because we're a little angry. Okay, we're very angry. We're angry because our conversations, our messages, our narratives, our concerns have been hijacked by the mainstream, and we are here to take them back. That brings me to our guest today. Now, he was born in privilege, but reborn in violence. A laid-back Lahori socialite who had no idea how he and his family would become a very dark chapter in this country's fight against terrorism and violent extremism. Kidnapped for years, but only to return bigger, better, and stronger. The author of this, a memoir of faith, family, and 5 years in terrorist captivity, a brutally honest, succinct, and even morbid read by a man I have a lot of questions for because he's been gone for so long. Shahbaz Taseer. Kya haal hai?
That's good.
Okay, well, I'm going to get straight to it, man. Explain this. Shabby Tea. Shabby Tea. You've got to get me through the nickname first. Tell me about the nickname.
Chubby kid in high school. Tall, but stayed the same height for some reason. And dressed funny. Came from Aitson to an American school. Wore boots with pants and some funny shirt. And, it was a bit weird for the LAS kids to take. So they started calling me Shabby. And from Shabby, it evolved to Shabby Tea. And yeah.
It's very, very hip hop of you, very rap star of you.
I love this. It's my favorite music, so it works with me as well.
We'll come to your favorite music in a bit, but I have to kick off with this. Shahbaz sent this to me a week ago. I haven't been able to put this book down. I'm almost through it, but the lube lubab of this, if I may, with your permission, it starts on a morning in August 2011, where you tell us through your entire journey starts with the morning that you're kidnapped. From your house, you're going to your office, and through 5 years of captivity, including especially the bits about the brutal torture you were affected by, you were put through. You tell us about your captors, your family, this remarkable investigation, and most importantly, you tell us how you kept it all together through faith, through your father's memory, through a belief in yourself. I really want you to tell us, Shahbaz, how you wrote this book, why you wrote this book, and then we can get through how you made it through those 5 years.
When I was actually in captivity, I used to keep some diaries with me. And it took me a lot of strength to actually ask my captor if I could keep these diaries. And I used to write in them every day. And it wasn't just about what was happening that day, but also, about my life before and my thoughts. And then while I was keeping these diaries, my present, as in where I was, started getting very intense. Zarb-e-Azab started. It started with the Karachi airport attack. There was bombings. We moved to Shawwal. And I had this diary throughout. Then we moved to Afghanistan. And it was a crazy place. Like, I can not explain to you. It was the most God-forsaken, abandoned terrain that I've ever seen anywhere in my life. But these diaries were with me. And when the Uzbeks and the Afghan Taliban got into a fight, I lost those diaries. I also didn't know if I'd ever come back because the situation was quite, volatile, to say the least. When I did finally come back, I knew exactly what I had to do. Like, a lot of people approached me for a lot of different things, but I knew I had to write a book. I don't know why, My grandfather was a poet and a writer. My father wrote a book about Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. And so for me, I wanted to be, in that company. And also to be in that company, I had to articulate this story in a way that I would feel that I could put this book in my library next to my grandfather and my father's, which I feel in a very humble way, I feel that if my father did read it, he'd be very proud that I managed to articulate this story.
I think you wouldn't just be proud of your storytelling skills. I think he would be very proud of your survival skills too.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is from him, and so I left. I don't know. It's not that I wanted to be like a bestseller or like something like that, but I really want people to read it and go through this journey with me. It was very difficult to write as well. And not difficult because I had to revisit these places, because when I revisit them, I go with a sense of accomplishment because I overcame it. But, chronologically to compile those years, it is a bit draining. And it took me about 4 years to write it as well. And so it's one of my greatest accomplishments. I work in a family business. I take that responsibility very seriously. We come up with new things, we do, but it's still part of something that's existed. This, I feel, is something that's, come from me. It's mine, and I'm very proud of it.
Well, you have every reason to be. It reads smoothly. I haven't been able to stop every time I stop, and I've got a lot of other things going on. I've got like 6 other shows to do this week, and that keeps on disrupting everything because I keep on going back to it. But if I may, there's some lines which are harrowing and must be recollected. So you start with the abduction story. You get up in the morning. Your wife wants you to stay back. Your ex-wife, at that point, your wife. She wants you to hang back. You don't. Your own car, which you usually take to the office, is well, not in the best condition. You decide to take your dad's sports coupe. You decide to take that out.
By the way, that car had never had a problem before.
Right.
And it was a Prado, right? It was a fairly new one as well. So for the battery to die is...
Right.
And I'm not saying that this was designed in a cosmic sense, but really, like it
So the other car has only space for your briefcase and not your guard.
Exactly.
So you start moving without your guard. But anyways, they abduct you from right near your office. They take you through this harrowing journey. First you're in Lahore, then you're up into the Badlands. But you have this harrowing line there. While they're moving you around, I felt like a ghost traveling through hell. I think it was a remarkable line. I felt like a ghost traveling through hell. And then you describe how for the first few days, in the first couple of days, you're a fan of The Matrix. You felt like maybe this is not reality, the blue pill, red pill thing. And then finally, when it sets in, you're like, okay, this is life 2.0. This is Shahbaz Taseer 2.0. There's ironic instances there. Had you listened to your wife and stayed back for that morning, had you taken the right car or the wrong or another car, had you taken your guard along, had you stayed back in Dubai. But it's interesting that even on that flight from Dubai, you had been watching A Mighty Heart, which is it's been the subject of this show actually recently, because one of the actors in The Mighty Heart, Nan Siddiqui, was on the show recently. And that movie is about another kidnapping, that of Daniel Pearl, and similar brutality, if clearly not the same, thankfully. But tell me about those first few days.
So the first 3 days I spent in Lahore. And when I say I was like a ghost traveling through hell, or when I speak about The Matrix, it's very strange. I have put a lot of this together when I came back through research into other things. And basically, when they attacked me on MM Road, right outside my office, as soon as they put me underneath the car, I think I didn't even, and from MM Road to Kalma Chowk is maybe a 5-minute drive. They had already injected me with ketamine in my blood twice.
Which is horse tranquilizer.
Which is a horse tranquilizer in a dart. But inside a human being's veins, it's like synthetic heroin. And they kept injecting me with this for those 3 days. And I'm not saying that I overdosed, but like every time I would get some kind of consciousness, I was just covered in vomit and finding it very difficult to breathe. So I don't know what was happening to me, but I was also having these visions and seeing things that weren't real, and I was being dragged, just seeing these crazy things that actually, when I came back and started seeing the Joe Rogan podcast, I started learning about, I read about ayahuasca and what happens to people. There's some enzyme that's triggered or something, and you have this, hallucinogenic experience or something.
Right.
So I had some insane experience like this at the end of it, and it was like death. It was like somebody was dragging me to my death. And right at the end, I heard my father say to me that hold on to the kalma, which was very strange. And then I woke up in this room in which I later learned was in Valencia, some 5-marla house in Valencia. And there were these 3 masked men there, and my hands were tied and my foot was tied to the bed. And I realized, I started understanding I've been kidnapped. And they had been beating me viciously because of how I'd been reacting on these injections. They presumed I should just be asleep. But, your body reacts to these insane drugs in a different way. And so it was a horrible, it was like this horrible, like in ayahuasca, there's a shaman that takes you through this experience. So my shaman was an Uzbek terrorist. And I had this fear that I've never had. I'm scared of flying. I have a few fears and phobias, right? But when my eyes opened and I saw those men there with their guns looking at me, I actually realized what's happened. I started realizing I've been kidnapped. And because Daniel Pearl, The Mighty Heart was the last movie that I'd watched, I didn't think that this is a negotiation or anything. So when my kidnapper came and said, don't worry, we're negotiating, he was lying. But वो कहते हैं ना, थोड़ा सा हौसला दे रहा था. तो जब उसने कहा बस हम बात कर रहे हैं और तुम 2-3 दिन में हो जाएगा, and this, I wanted to believe that. I really wanted to believe that I'm not going to be a Daniel Pearl. I'm going to be out here in 2-3 days. And I don't know if you know this, but Ali Zafar was kidnapped once for a few days, the singer.
I kind of remember that.
Yeah. So he was kidnapped with his then fiance Aisha, who's a very close friend of mine. And I just remember, they were very traumatized, but a deal was quickly made and Aisha's dad got them out, right? So it was an experience with someone that I knew, and I was just thinking, but it was done in like 3-4 days, right? So I'm going to get really lucky. Hopefully these guys are not extremists. But every second would show, kind of the fear would settle in, and I would know that I'm not with just thugs, or some gangsters or something.
So they say, according to the stats, that the first 24 to 36 hours are critical. If you haven't found a kidnapping victim in those first couple of days, chances are they're gone. And chances are that the kidnappers have struck gold. But you lived clearly beyond that. The kidnapping lasted beyond that. Next bit is...
I do want to tell you something, though. They almost got me, the ISI. So in the book, you probably read the story about the key and how I dropped it on the side.
That's right.
Caused some confusion.
That
was on Friday morning.
And on purpose, you dropped the key for your car.
Yeah. And that was Friday morning.
And one of the kidnappers hung back to claim that car.
Yeah.
And because he hung back, one of the other kidnappers
dropped his phone.
Came back to get him and dropped his phone. They found that phone.
That guy, actually, who dropped his phone...
Usman Basra
was my kidnapper, Muhammad Ali's, wo kehte hain kyamti dost. It's like... it's a stronger bond than how we say like blood brothers, best friends or something.
Plus, they were relatives.
They weren't. He was Uzbek, he was Pakistani. It was just
उसकी शादी वादी नहीं होनी थी.
बहन Muhammad Ali ki sister-in-law, who was at the time 13, he had pledged her to Basra.
Right.
So it was more than say commander and Sipahi.
Minion, yeah.
It was a bond. And that bond and the fact that guy got caught on a Friday leading to 2 more arrests in subsequent days, is the only reason I'm actually alive, because the other 23 names didn't matter on that list. Just these 3 did.
So even those early arrests did count, and the ISI made those
And
arrests.
the ISI, like, it's really funny because the ISI guy who was doing the thing, when I met him, he's like, "Sir, हम बस 2 कदम आपके पीछे थे." तो I joked with him. I was like, आवाज देते थे, मैं रुक जाता. So
You know, it's funny because मुल्क के हालात ऐसे हो गए हैं. We're going to come to the country in just a minute. I want to get through your book first because
Yeah.
it's fascinating. But ISI को आजकल for good or bad reason गालियाँ बहुत पड़ती हैं. The ISI, of course, is not a homogeneous entity. The ISI has done very brave things, very good things. They almost helped you, almost. But they also work quite hard, sometimes a little too hard for the rest of us to bear.
Yeah.
Well, quickly, about the authorities, how's your experience been with them through the years and your families, with the ISI in particular?
I have no experience with them because I was on the other side. My mother had a very difficult experience because I was missing and there was no hope. But there are a few people that she always, like, my mother prays 5 times a day. And she specifically prays for these people in every dua. And one was an ISI guy who had been assigned. One was a senior general who was coordinating throughout. As a matter of fact, played a pivotal role in rescuing me in the end. You know, I have a lot of political differences with Mia Saab and Shahbaz Sharif, but the two of them were, you know, just in a personal capacity. You know, they just put their arm around my younger brother. They gave my mother a lot of hostla, whatever they could do.
Sure.
The problem is nobody could do anything. It was, you know how you said you have these 36 hours, right? And when those 36 hours end, I don't know what happens in other parts of the world, but in a country like Pakistan, where there's an area like Waziristan with Mir Ali, Miran Shah, Shawal, and then direct access to Afghanistan.
Right.
And you have this massive border that is, by the way, it has a lot of security and people patrol it, like the US was patrolling it, Pakistan was on its side back then. It's still lawless and impossible to monitor. It's, by the way, one of the largest borders between countries as well.
Sure.
Pakistan and Afghanistan.
It's almost 2,000
So those
clicks,
36 hours that you're saying, right, if they expire, the guy is gone. There's and also you have to understand who's got you. Is it a cartel? Is it a mafia? Is it a militant group has gone into a place where they're safe, which is all lawless Afghanistan or lawless region in Pakistan. And then the negotiation is happening. Just think of it as you're in another world and there's a negotiation. One of the reasons that I am very close to, I always say that, you know, I'm alive because of Allah. He saved me, my father's memory, things like this. I don't like getting into the I'm brave or courageous because there's another side to that as well. But I always say this because when things were really bad, there wasn't a single human being or power on earth that could give me any kind of relief. And the only relief I got were miracles, just out of nowhere, you know. Something would happen and this impossible situation, which was consuming me, would become better.
Including surviving a drone attack.
It turned out to be the best thing for my mental health and for my, for my insaniyat.
We'll get to the drone attack for a minute, but you have to drive me through this. So the first 36 hours pass, and then they get you out. You're gone. The ISI is no longer 2 steps behind you. They've lost track. And then the beatings begin. So they start beating you for sport. You find yourself in Mir Ali, which is in North Waziristan. It's like the Wild Wild West, literally medieval Western frontier town.
Very diverse population, by the way.
I've heard.
Very
I've been.
diverse.
My post-war Mir Ali mein gaya hua. In fact, I was the first journalist in when the army took over.
I remember.
But that's a whole other horror story. I don't know what you went through. I just saw the ghosts, and it was quite horrible. But they give you a lota to use for ablutions, to clean yourself, to drink from. They eventually give you some bread, but then they start giving you goat fat because your captor is a sicko.
And I was trying to be a little over smart.
You were goading him. आप उसे बेवकूफ बना रहे थे कि मुझे diabetes है, तो उसने कहा ऐसे चर्बी खिलाओ.
We've all had Maggi noodles and ramen, right? Just try, and I can never I never like telling my friends to go through my experience, but like just try having it for 3 days, garam, lunch and dinner, twice, 2 portions, not one. And then the 4th day, just have 1 portion in the morning garam and the same portion ka aadha hissa at night thanda. And you'll realize that it's rubber. And so in the first 3 days that I ate it, whether it was cold or hot, it was just, I needed it, right? But the 4th day, I started realizing, oh my God, it's rubber. I can't die. And this is the 4th day. So it took me still like a couple of months to build up the courage to say, hey, how about a diet plan shift?
So you besides asking the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan for a diet plan, once that great plan went through, they
when you said it like that, I realized why I got goat fat.
So not only do they resort to feeding you goat fat forcibly, which you first try to not eat and throw away, but then they started the torture. The more from the beatings, they went on to the torture. I'm not going to get into the details, but perhaps I must. They pulled off your nails.
That was the easiest, by the way. The nails were the easiest. So it's pretty crazy, right? Because it's just a very simple pull. I know this I'm making it sound really simple. It's not. But, playing football, you must have broken a nail or something. And the doctor literally just has to pull it, right? So wo plas se laga ke they pull it and it just clicks out. They used to give me a little, like a tiny injection of like a painkiller. It didn't really help, but it did. You know what I mean? It's still really brutal. The other stuff, then there's just, there's nothing. There's no kind of relief even. Like when they buried me in the ground, sleep deprivation. I don't think I even spoke about it a lot in my book. But sleep deprivation is the only time in my life that I thought, that's it, I've gone insane. And it's a very thin line between going insane and staying sane. It's very delicate. And if you just flip the other side, you're gone. There's no coming back. And torture does that. That's what torture is there for.
They cut off your parts of your back.
Yeah, they used to take chunks of flesh. So they took 4. They basically just took a plas. They grabbed as much fat, and you'd be surprised. No matter how anorexic one is, you can get a pretty good chunk. And they just take a blade and they cut it off.
They sent some of these.
Yeah,
they recorded this and they sent them to your mother.
All of it, yeah, every second of it, and they would there would be a clue in there or a message in the middle of all this. Actually, that's the most painful part of the torture. Is the thing is that, I was telling you about the brave and the courageous part, right? So when all of this used to happen, the kind of sounds that used to come out of my body used to terrify me. And it used to, I hate saying make me question my manhood or something like that, but I am a man, and maybe because you're a man, you can take a certain amount of physical pain that maybe a female or even a child can't take. But I didn't feel like a man. I didn't even feel like a human. I think I felt like maybe like a goat that was being slaughtered. Like, us tarah ki awaaz aati hai. I don't know. And they would haunt me. My own sound used to haunt me. The way I used to cry. I used to beg them for mercy. It's not like I was like, come on, another one. I used to beg them, please stop. And when they used to lash me, it started with 75 and they took it to about 120. And it's not like, push-ups. It's like literally 75 one day, 85 the next, 95. You're at 120 in 7 days. And these are litters, chittar. थाने में 3-4 पढ़ते हैं और बंदा अपनी पूरी ज़िंदगी की कहानी बता देता है. तो विदाउट आस्किंग यू फॉर एनीथिंग, बस किस बर्दाश्त करो 100 छितर. और जो इन द एंड इट्स लाइक द साउंड इज़ टू मच, राइट? And then to know that, your mother of all people, your father has a better capacity to take your physical pain than your mother. Even your brother and your sister can take it. This is not down to sex. This is actually just that role.
This is biology.
It's biology. It's just the role that she's played. She's fed you. She's given birth to you. She's raised you. You're at your worst, she loves you. At your best, she's the only person who's proud of you. And she has to actually be subjected to this. It's my only burden from these 4.5 years. I randomly go to her and ask her to forgive me. And of course, she's a very brave woman. She's been through a lot in her life, and she gets very upset with me when I say this. And gets very upset because she says, this was your pain. We have to help you. But God gave me the strength to bear my pain. But only when I came back did I see that because of what I went through, how many other people got scarred, people close to me, very, very close to me. So, that part of it, the fact that she had to watch it. There's the first time that I spoke to her was after 6 months, and I couldn't recognize her voice. And I felt really ashamed. Like, I felt it was the most ashamed I've ever felt to myself, because it's 6 months. I'd not heard her. And when she spoke, I thought it could be anyone, right? I knew it's her, but I couldn't place a face and a voice. And even though I was, she hadn't spoken to me either. And they were saying that they're going to kill me. And I just remember her shouting across the phone, and she's like, "Maine tumhe Allah ke haath mein choda hai, tumhe koi haath nahi lagayega. Don't you dare give up." And I didn't know what she's talking about. What do you mean, don't you dare give up? The guy's going to kill me. I think she maybe had a better idea that maybe they won't kill him, but she was giving me strength, So yeah, she's very brave, and I'm very lucky to be her son.
And I'm very lucky to have met you, young man. But I have some questions, further questions. The moments you talk to your mom, of course.
I'm sorry, guys.
No, you're okay. You're okay. The moment you talk to your mom, the moments that you did, I'm sure they were strengthening, enabling. But you also made friends with a spider.
Yeah, Peter.
You also started talking to your blade. You also, in not a good way, and you also rediscovered the Quran.
Yeah.
Tell me about any one of those moments.
The blade was a very difficult one. I think,
They gave it to you to shave yourself.
Park.
And you started...
It became my biggest trial.
And you started considering suicide.
I was dead. I was numb. They'd take me to the bathroom. Maybe the guard would try to put my head in the pot. A couple of times I used to fight, and then the life would leave me. So while this was going on, it was about a month of this very dark place. And I had now also... I was in solitary confinement for about 6-7 months. And I'd been tortured, and I'd been shot, and I'd recovered from that. And I was cleaning myself till somehow the blade came here, and I just, I have my wife's name here now, and I just put it here, and I closed my eyes, and I knew what I had to do. It's really funny. It's the only time in my life that I realized I'm a coward. Because I couldn't do it. And I couldn't do it because of any reason that came to my head except that I can't do it. And I cursed myself and said, "You're a coward, and look at you, you live like this. You'd rather die like a dog than just end this." And I read this beautiful ayat in the Quran, and I would just... The Quran was new to me, reading it, and every time I would go into these very dark places, I would just pick it up, and somehow something would speak to me. And I read this ayat, and I didn't understand it, but it was something about now Midi basically giving up or something. And it said to be hopeless is to leave Islam. Right? Now Midi kufr hai. So I said, "Oh my God, now I'm..." to make it worse, now I'm going down this road.
Can't die a kafir.
Can't die a kafir, right? So I wanted to know why. Why is now Midi kufr? And there's this jihadi scholar, his name is Sayyid Qutb. They hold him responsible for the Muslim Brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, the only kind of texts I had were these. And I was reading Seerat that he'd written. And in there, I came across this. And it said that to be hopeless is to give up on the divinity of God and His power. What is His power? A miracle. So whereas you are only looking at the world through your eyes, you're not looking at it through His eyes. And for Him, this and your entire situation will change. So don't give up, because tomorrow is your miracle. And I thought, I can't believe Osama bin Laden just gave me the best advice in my life.
वो वाकई उसका inspiration था. Highly recommend you don't read Sayyid Qutb
Don't
if you're
read
there.
Sayyid
Yeah,
Qutb.
yeah, but unless you're stuck with the IMU and that's the only thing on your reading list. But coming back, you discover the Quran, rather you rediscover the Quran, and then آپ ڈبیٹ کرنے لگ گئے with your own captors about Islam. اس میں بہت زبردست ایک سین ہے کہ آپ کا جو کیپٹر ہے, جو آپ کا ٹارچرر ہے, ایک دن آپ نے اس سے جہاد کے بارے میں ڈبیٹ کی کہ what is jihad, and I find it fascinating that you actually beat a terrorist on the subject of jihad in terms of theology. Tell me about that afternoon.
There's no argument. If you're a Muslim, you cannot say that your trial is more difficult than the Prophet or his companions.
ایسا ہی ہے.
Right? We agree?
Absolutely.
Did any of the Prophet or his companions commit suicide, carry out suicide bombings, torture prisoners, any of these things? So there's no misal of this throughout, right? So if what happened to the Prophet and his companions is worse than what can ever happen to any of his ummah till the end of time, right? We accept this as Muslims. Then why would we do things that he didn't do, like encourage suicide bombing, right? Then you come to the whole argument of what is jihad. And by the way, jihad is also a process, right? In order to do jihad, a mujahid, right, is the elite of Muslims. He is the elite, right? To be an elite, what is an elite Muslim? What do the Prophet's enemies always say about him? He doesn't lie, he doesn't steal, he won't backstab you, you can trust him, even if he's not your friend, right? So इंसान, पहले इंसान बनो, सबसे पहले एक अच्छा इंसान बनो, उसके बाद तुम मुसलमान बनोगे. जब तुम मुसलमान बनोगे, उसके बाद तुम्हें अल्लाह की जो सारे हुक्म है सही तरह समझ में आएंगे. उनमें से एक जो हुक्म है ना, वो ये है कि जब मुसलमान पे जुल्म होता है तो सब्र एक इस्लाम का पिलर है. सब्र का दरवाज़ा, जो लोग सब्र करते हैं उनके लिए जन्नत में एक दरवाज़ा है, जैसे मुजाहिद के लिए और लोगों के लिए, सब्र करने वाले के लिए. सब्र आप कब करते हैं? जब आप पे मुश्किल वक्त आता है, जब आप परसिक्यूट होते हैं. जो हमारे दीन के पहले शहीद हैं, वो एक शहीदों में से एक खातून, एक बूढ़ी खातून थी जो एक गरीब औरत थी, जिसको कुरैश के लोग डेजर्ट में लेके गए और उसके पेट पे पत्थर बांधा और उसको रेत में छोड़ के कहा कि छोड़ो ये कलमा. तो उसने कहा मैं नहीं छोड़ूंगी. वो ना कभी पैगम्बर इस्लाम से मिली थी, उसने दावत सुनी थी और कहा था ये हक पे है और ये सच पे है. सही है. सिर्फ इस बात पे वो पहली शहीद है, उसको मार दिया डेजर्ट में. जब तक आप मदीना नहीं गए, आपके ऊपर जो कुछ हुआ था वो सब्र था और बर्दाश्त थी. परसिक्यूशन एक्सेप्ट करनी, ये एक जिहाद का रास्ता है. अब अगर हम ये बात मानते हैं कि हमारे पे कभी वो जुल्म नहीं हो सकता जो पैगंबर और उसकी उम्मा पे, उसके कंपेनियंस पे हुआ है, सही है, then how can we encourage suicide bombings when they never did? They fought 300 men against 10,000 men and Allah gave them victory. हम इधर आर्ग्यूमेंट करते हैं इन मिलिटेंट ग्रुप्स में कि जी अमेरिका के पास तो असला है, तो पाकिस्तान के पास न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब है, तो हम फिदाई हमला करेंगे. आप हुक्म ही गलत दे रहे हैं. ये थोड़ी सी उसमें मैं पढ़ जाता हूँ. बट अभी मैं अपने दोस्त के साथ यही डिबेट कर रहा था तोशा खाना के ऊपर. अगर एक कानून है आपका, जब आप कुर्सी पे बैठते हैं, वो कहता है, कानून कहता है कि आप इस कुर्सी पे बैठ के पर्सनल अपने लिए फ़ायदा नहीं कर सकते, तो ये तोशा खाना का कानून क्या है जो आपको 10% पे प्राइसलेस चीज़ें दे रहा है? You're benefiting yourself, right? You cannot have a law that contradicts a law, right? If you have to do sabr in the face of persecution, you can't decide to blow yourself up, right? So I would get into these very heated arguments. They were never violent. उन्होंने मुझे कभी नहीं मारा. उन्होंने मुझे एक दो बातों पे मारा था. They had nothing to do with my argument. सिर्फ जब ये कराची में फ़िदाई बंदे भेज रहे थे, मैं उसको गालियाँ देना शुरू हो गया था, क्योंकि बच्चे तो सुनने के लिए तैयार नहीं थे और ये बस मैनिपुलेट करी जा रहा था. उस पर उसने मुझे ठुड्डे मारे थे. और एक वो जो रोम की कहानी है, उस पर he wanted to choke the life out of me.
काफ़ी हफ्तों बाद आपको साबुन दिया गया उस नहाने के लिए, और उस साबुन पे was a rather voluptuous woman. As the first woman you'd seen in a while. I'm quite interested first image of a woman you'd seen in a while.
I thought he was more affected than me.
So what I find really interesting about this book is कि you've created it's of course it's morbid, man. Talking to a spider is quite morbid.
It is.
Singing Spider-Man to the spider is even more morbid. But you know what I'm pretty impressed by is कि तुमने ये sense of humor इस दौरानिये में or the ability to recall it as well इस दौरानिये से. How did you maintain that? How did you maintain the ability to actually enjoy the image of a woman on a soap, which is the first thing they've given you to clean yourself after months of beating you?
You know, it was pretty funny because when he gave it to me, I was like, ooh. And he looked at me. He's like, and he tore her face.
Astaghfirullah.
Astaghfirullah. And then, we laughed about it. It was funny. But, there were so many cases like this. Like, I don't know if I've written this book, but, Sohail and I used to, the Manu games is one part of our relationship, right? But he brought 2 movies in as well once. I don't know if I've written this part of it. There's a lot that I had to take out for relevance. But वो लेके आया मीर अली के बाजार से Fast and the Furious, the one that was in Brazil, but it was in Indian.
That's probably 7 or 8.
Yeah, 6 or 7,
sure,
right?
Okay.
And it was in India, in Hindi, right?
Hindi में Fast and Furious
हिंदी में Fast and Furious, वो DVD मीर अली के बाजार
में मिलती थी.
हाँ. और वो लेके आया वुल्वरीन सिल्वर सैमुराई, और वो भी इंडियन में थी. अब मसला ये था कि वो देखना चाहता था और उसको इंडियन नहीं समझ में आती थी, और उस पूरी जमात में कोई ऐसा आदमी नहीं था जिसके साथ वो बैठ के ये देख सकता था. तो मेरे पास आया, कहते हैं want to watch a movie? Yeah, I want to watch a movie. So he's like, it's in Hindi. So I was like, I'll translate it for you. So, we had these hilarious moments. The United Games.
Right. You guys started talking about soccer as well.
So I had a lot of these funny encounters of how when faced with certain parts of, like, a woman on a soap, Lux ka soap lo, but you can even a madrasa ka bacha will go and buy it and not make anything out of it. He'll just go and pick up the soap and come back.
So besides being impressed by the fluency of your writing, the depth of your memory, your sense of humor / morbidity, both go hand in hand. Also, your ability to survive. Yahya Libby, Al-Qaeda number 3 था, I think, जब उस पे अटैक हुआ था.
और वो भाग के आया था इराक के जेल से.
Right. One of the most dangerous men in the world. Drone strike in the same compound you are. बहुत सारे लोग मारे गए. Shabazz Taseer.
My guard died.
Was presumed dead. Yeah. Your guard died. Your captor didn't.
Captor wasn't there. One of the first responders.
खबर पाकिस्तान में, I remember, मुझे याद है टिकट चल गया था कि शहबाज तासीर गया. And it was quite sad. अखबारों में खबरें छप गई थी. 2 questions. One is personal, one is political. Personal के होता क्या है जब ड्रोन अटैक होता है, और second political में बाद में आता हूँ, पहले ये बताइए.
A drone attack is the most, I can't explain it. I've been in jet strikes, I've been in tank firing, I've been in artillery, I've just about C-130, you name it, anything that there is, any war machinery that exists in the skies has rained hell upon me. Okay, US, NATO, or Pakistani.
My God.
So that it's like just that whole area is monitored by these 3 entities, and they bomb mercilessly anything that moves. A drone is really strange. It flies. It's like a plastic plane, and you can hear it, right?
मच्छर की तरह.
So वो admirably, मतलब इतना सा तो है, तो वो घूम रहा है, वो सर्वेलेंस कर रहा है. अब जब जेट आते हैं ना, तो सबकी ट्रेनिंग होती है. मेरी भी ट्रेनिंग थी. जब मैं शवाल में था, आई वॉज प्रॉपरली ट्रेन्ड to run from a jet. You hear a shoo, as in now you know wo aa rahe hain. You run outside of your house, you get cover, and you hide, and you don't move from that one place, right? And you have to go into the jungle and get it. You have to move away from lights and villages and things, any kind of building or anything like this. Not that it helps, because wo jungle mein bhi maarte hain. Tank fire mein, there's a way. अच्छा, रात को जब drones आते हैं, you stand in moving water with ये foil paper, to keep food warm. what's it called?
Aluminum foil.
Aluminum foil. You wrap yourself around it, stops your body heat. The drone can't catch you. And if you're standing in moving water, if the water is moving, it breaks the signal. The drone can't see you at night.
My God.
But it's -10 in Shawal. So
Shawal is in North Waziristan and one of the densest forests in
but
that
you have
region.
to trust me.
And the highest
if
forest
there's a
in the
drone
region.
flying and there are jets bombing, you have to stand in moving water. You won't die, by the way. You won't freeze to death. You'll stand in front of a fire. You'll be fine. But घंटा 2 घंटा आपने उस पानी में बैठना है. अगर आप वहाँ से हिलोगे like one of the things that they said to me in Afghanistan was really funny because हम 7 दिन जंग से भाग के अफगानिस्तान पहुंचे थे और सारे सजदा कर रहे थे and the guy turned around, he's like, इधर तो कुत्ता भी खुले आसमान के नीचे नहीं सोता, तुम लोग सजदा किस चीज़ की कर रहे हो? That's actually where the title for the book comes from. Because I realized, I think where I'm going, there's no way back,
You're lost
it's
to the
like
world.
a pit, yeah. I was in 2 drone strikes. So the first one was Abu Yahya, Libya, and the second one was on an Uzbek compound, but I was like 3-4 houses or 3, like itna bada compound, and मैं इधर था उन्होंने इधर मारा है. मतलब यार, but it's easy to say it, but like the sound of a blast is this thing that gives you a ringing in your ear, and it's continuous, it never goes. And I have that because I've been in so many of these explosions. So the second one was easier, but the first one, they were targeting Abu Yahya, Libya, and लिटरली मतलब यार जितना बड़ा आपका ये घर है वो उसका कॉम्पाउंड होगा और मैं इधर 7 गली में एक मिट्टी के कमरे में होऊंगा. तो उन्होंने उधर बीच में मारा, तो दिस इज finished. My guard died.
And the guy who was holding you right next to you, he died. उस पे छत गिरी, आप पे
He
दीवार
was just a
गिरी.
young guard. वो ड्यूटी जो करने वाले नहीं होते, वो बस एक young बंदा था, उसका नाम वो मेरे साथ था. He died in that strike. And I, by the way, was the only survivor from all of these.
But, and this is the second question. I said drone पे 2 सवाल हैं, one personal, one political. You actually support drone strikes.
Yeah, it's, well...
Stop. Hold on. Now, this is a very loaded question, so let me contextualize it. Drone strikes are complicated. There's a school which says they're horrible. They're inhuman. They create collateral damage, which basically is very mechanical English for women, children, people who are not involved in the battle space. They're killed. It's a very surgical, clinical way of fighting. It's not the Shakespearean Greek tragedy way of dying. And it creates a distance between the instigator, the aggressor, and the target or the victim. And isliye, a lot of times, a lot of drone attacks have gone wrong. They've been criticized by the very people who've done them. The drone program has effectively, mostly been shut down. Because of, the numbers have made sense to a certain extent, and sometimes the cost of the drone attack itself is too much to bear. Now, that's the debate. That's the layout. But despite having survived 2, you are for them.
So, you know what I was telling you about the drone strike? There's nothing like it. But it is a precision-based strike. There's a lot of research behind a drone strike. So a drone doesn't just appear in the middle of the day and shoot a rocket and leave. It circles the town for 2-3 days. It's there.
Reconnaissance कर रहा होता है, intelligence gathering कर रहा होता है, सुन रहा होता है, देख रहा होता है.
कैसे? वो हवा में है. So intelligence ground से आती है. That means there's an agent on the ground who's giving that drone intelligence. If you're the target, the only way for a drone to get you is if I put a laser tag on you. It's a tag, right? Or a chip in your house somewhere that's not detectable by anyone except that drone. And so it knows exactly where to hit, right? Also, drone missiles, and you can study this, are, again, precision-based missiles. So they're incinerators or bunker busters or, right? But controlled. वो उस घर को फाड़ेगा जिसके अंदर वो है. Unfortunately, जब मैं उसामा बिन लादेन के घर पे ड्रोन स्ट्राइक मारूंगा तो उसकी 3 बीवियां और 9 बच्चे भी उस घर में. मैं एक टेररिस्ट और उसके ख़ानदान के साथ रहा हुआ हूँ और वो बच्चे, उन बच्चों से मेरा बहुत प्यार था और उस औरत ने मेरी जान बचाई थी. मगर अगर ड्रोन स्ट्राइक उसके घर में होती तो कोई भी ना बचता, वो सब मरते. अब जब मैं कहता हूँ कि I don't know if I'm pro drone strike, I'm not pro war. But in war, precision weaponry is better than merciless carpet bombing. Because I've run from C-130. When I was running from Shawal Valley to Afghanistan, the Americans and the NATO were carrying that operation out. So whatever you think of Pakistanis is nothing. They just don't have the same weaponry as these guys. And जब वो तो उसको वो उज़्बेक कहते थे गुम्पाक, because वो पहले गुम्पाक सही है? And it's got these 2 turrets, and it just goes and a mountain will go. Okay? And that doesn't really look for any women, children. There's no surveillance behind it. There's just nothing. There's like area X, finish. Just to tell you something about drone strikes, you can do your own independent research and tell me how many high-ranking Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, Al-Qaeda, IMU, Lashkar-e-Jangvi, Boko Haram, the Uyghur group, you take any of these terrorist outfits. Tell me how many of their leaderships have been killed by drone strikes and how many have been confirmed killed in jets and tanks and military operations.
Sure, but there's a whole political element to it as well. Besides the precision, there's a whole the whole human element of war as well, or the inhuman mechanical element of war as well. But this show is not about drone strikes; it's about you. But I buy your argument. I get
what can I do? I'm stuck in this hellhole with these mania. पहले तो by the way मैं कहता था कि इनसे आप बात ना करें. ये आपको जिधर मिलते हैं ना, इनको carpet bomb ही करें. सही है? But I met this wonderful woman. Her name is Carla Power, and she has written a book about ISIS militants through the eyes of their mother. And she told me that if you want to be different from your enemy, you must deal with them through the lenses of humanity. If you don't, you're no different. And you'll keep breeding this, which is so true. Because the more violence you use, and I've seen this, every time you kill one, it's like Medusa. There are like 100 heads that come. You can kill Osama bin Laden, and the next day, the new guy of Al-Qaeda is 1,000 times more dangerous, deadly, and somehow, his plan is like making Osama look like a shadow.
You know who you sound like now? This is the time for the perfect segue. You sound like Imran Khan.
Oh God!
Yeah, Khan Saab makes the same argument. He's anti-war. He was against the drone program, however, for the reasons I perhaps stated out earlier. Magar थोड़ा आज में आते हैं. आप अभी से you are our first Lahori guest. Welcome to the green room again. थोड़ा सा time to switch gears. So politically speaking, you've been making pro-PTI noises. One can sense it from your Twitter feed. But yet, जियालों की family से हो, जियालों के बेटे हो. How do you reconcile that right now, considering mulk kitna polarized hai, your PPP legacy versus your PTI leanings, if not your affiliation? Where do you see all of this? How do you reconcile it?
It's very difficult. So I'm not a PTI. I don't support them in any way. In terms of, I have a lot of friends that are in PTI. But politically, I don't find anything in common with them. I also don't agree with Khan Saab's view on, settling them and opening borders and communication.
But तुम्हारी tweets बहुत pro.
So कभी कभार हम जब आप कहते हैं ना जियाले, सही है, जो पीपल्स पार्टी है ना, वो जियालों की पार्टी नहीं है, वो पाकिस्तानी अवाम के लिए जो उनके लोग हैं जिन्होंने शहादतें दी हैं या जो भी किया है, वो जियालों के लिए नहीं मरे. वो क्रॉस मेरे जो अबू थे, वो एक जियाली का हाथ, शी wasn't a PPP voter or supporter. She was just a poor Christian woman who nobody even knew of, right? But he held her hand and said, I'm not going to let it go. Benazir herself, Benazir wasn't fighting so that Sindh ke andar extremism na hai. She was fighting so that militancy in Pakistan finishes, right? She died fighting that. So my only view is, when I saw the events that happened at Zaman Park, I don't care if you like me or if you don't like me. I wouldn't want someone to use excessive force against you. Right?
Sure.
And I do believe that regardless of your opposing view, and what is our opposing view here? About running something? I run a company. I have opposing views with my directors and my employees all the time. We have to sit on a table and sort it out, right? And go forward. So many times I've been wrong. As the CEO or the chairman of a certain company, I'm wrong and my manager is right. So I have to do what he's saying. You know what I mean? They have no consensus in this country. They're like all up in arms. But I say that as someone from the PPP, you cannot allow police brutality against PTI, against PMLN, against anyone. You have to be the front line to say, yeah, I don't care what you say about me. You cannot touch the people of Pakistan. The the Pakistan People's Party. Now you've got PPP guys saying that there wasn't excessive force used yesterday. Yeah, I saw them with, my friend was there, okay? I have heated political arguments with him. But they tear-gassed him, man. Okay, that's not force. They didn't shoot him in the head, but they tear-gassed the man. His eyes were black. He's a fair-skinned guy. His eyes were black, yeah. Women, children. You can't turn around and say there was no excessive force. Secondly, I don't think someone like Rana Sannawalla should be in charge of the Interior Ministry or looking over anything that includes forces or security or intelligence, right? These are my personal views. अब आती है आपकी खान साहब की सपोर्ट की बात. हम लोगों को 2 बार जो 89 की गवर्नमेंट आई थी, जो उसके बाद गवर्नमेंट आई थी, गलत तरह निकाला गया था या सही? नहीं. The argument is, they used constitutional loopholes to remove sitting prime ministers. Fine, Nawaz Sharif ki aakhri baar there was martial law, right? Aakhri baar they declared martial law. But the first time he was removed and the 2 times Benazir was removed, they found loopholes in the constitution.
Sure.
Why did they remove the 18th amendment? Why did they introduce the 18th amendment? Why?
Because of 58(2)(b.
To finish this loophole.
Right.
Then why did it go, this vote of no confidence go to the parliament and the People's Party and the PMLN, where these numbers are coming from? How did they get the numbers to oust Imran Khan? They got it through the establishment. The People's Party doesn't work with the establishment. This is my naive argument.
So you're saying that your party, your father's party, the PPP, the People's Party and its friends across the aisle in PMLN, ye use हुए हैं establishment से, or they've slept with the establishment they've been enabled by the establishment to take out Imran, and you don't like that.
I don't like that.
And
you can't deny it.
Have you talked to your friends inside the PPP about this?
Yeah.
You've talked to your friend Bilawal Bhutto?
He has his own view. He doesn't agree with me. But I mean, he's the chairman of the party and he has his own view. Fine. I can respect his view.
But he's a family friend. I'm sure you boys have known each other for years.
Yeah, we have. Look, these are debates that, we have, but he's a leader. He takes decisions. My job as a friend and as someone, by the way, I keep crying. Now I feel like I'm crying and saying I'm a Jala. No, because look, in politics, if we're both PPP, we have to be able to, we can't agree on everything, but we have to work together, right? So if I feel that, PPP shouldn't be in a coalition with PMLN, historically, Nawaz Sharif keeps saying, I've learned my lesson. He just ousted another prime minister. So no, he hasn't, okay? And I don't believe that the PMLN and the PPP should be in a coalition. They've tried it, by the way, it was a huge failure.
Okay. So, all right. This is the perfect time to take a segue into our next section. This is called Them. We are talking to people who you know of and people you haven't talked to in a while. We're going to be talking to them directly. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So here's what's happening. This is now talking to them. You're not speaking to me. I'm just going to tell you who you're talking to. Okay? You're going to talk to them in the first person. You're going to try to say it with a straight face. You don't have to keep a straight face. And you can do it in 30 to 45 seconds. How does that sound?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. So first person you're speaking to is your friend from the PPP, from your father's party, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari.
What's up, man? Let's get some of that we going on.
Okay, that's fun. Is that all
By
you boys
we,
do?
I mean the Nintendo. Hogsworth.
I got it. I got it. For a minute, I was like, whoa, okay, do we need to give the foreign minister a blood test? Okay. Okay. All right, okay. Next, Imran Khan.
So you should just, you should hand yourself in and see how that goes. The entire country, I think, is with you.
That's interesting advice. Okay.
Except me.
अच्छा. Because वो हमेशा सुन रहे होते हैं. उनका काम है the फौज.
खुदा के लिए यार थोड़ा सा I think you guys just need to take a step back and just let the civilian politicians do this. You really made a mess of things.
All right. That's fair. All right, this is important. This is really important. To people who don't believe in climate change.
Don't be like Trump. Even he believes in climate change. He's got green buildings in Dubai and golf courses and stuff that are like, terrain positive or whatever. Like everybody is now, on board on this. So please don't be one of those guys.
Or girls.
Or girls.
Or them.
Or them.
Acha, okay. Now, this is not to make a mockery of this. Magar, I have to do this. To your kidnappers.
What's up? When I was leaving my jail in Afghanistan, I told them that, and I told them that, you did this to me in God's name. So in the same God's name, I forgive you. But I'm going to tell you a funny story. The ambassador to Pakistan from the Emirat or Afghan, whatever they call the country now, I messaged him when they were going for their first meeting, and I was like, look at us, from the back of CD-70s to private planes now. And he's like, thank you, brother. We've come a long way.
Your sense of humor, it's remarkable. You still keep it. But this is perhaps even more grim, Shabazz. And I hate to do this, but I must. Because I think this has to come from you. Because jo tumne aur tumhari family ne saha hai, this must be heard. I want to hear it too. To those who celebrated and still celebrate your father's death and even celebrated his killer.
अल्लाह आपको हदायत दे और कभी भी किसी इंसान का कत्ल हमारे मज़हब में किया जाता है कि एक बेकसूर इंसान को मारना ऐसे है जैसे आपने इंसानियत को मार दिया. तो किसी भी इंसान का कत्ल होए, कोई भी इंसान मौत या दूसरी ज़िंदगी की तरफ जा रहा है, तो इसको सेलिब्रेट नहीं करते. हमें हमेशा मौत में अल्लाह कहता है डरो, ये एक डरने का मकाम है. तो सेलिब्रेट करने की आई डोंट नो, बट मैं हमेशा हदायत की दुआ मांगता हूँ. पैगम्बर ने भी हमेशा जो लोग उनकी बात नहीं सुनते थे, उनके हदायत की दुआ मांगी है.
Okay, now this is probably a very difficult one, but you have to say it. I want you to speak to Manchester City.
Your perch is red. You're just not on the same level. The Qataris are coming. It's over. It's absolutely over. And it's not just over for you, it's over for everyone. And up the Reds, bald is best.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we're back. That was them. This is us. Now, here we switch gears. We talk more about the community at large. We talk about issues which are larger than you, me, and them. You're our first guest from Lahore. Again, welcome to the Green Room. Magar, considering, abhi baat ho rahi thi between breaks, कि you think that the air here is better in Karachi. If nothing else, एक चीज रह गई है, sea breeze रह गई है हमारी.
खाना भी बहुत अच्छा.
अच्छा, thank you. Finally an admission. कराची का लाहौर से बेहतर है खाना.
जिस शहर की नहीं. I'm not gonna. I had the best nihari of my life in Karachi.
Yes.
I was like, अगर ये. Anyways, you have this other very cool place called Colette or something that has unbelievable pancakes. I've never eaten anything like it. I have these weird things that... So anyways, Karachi has catered to me and food-wise like no place in the world.
This is a rare moment in Pakistan's history. एक proper Lahori admit कर रहा है कि हमारा शहर बेहतर है.
ये नवाज शरीफ की गलती है ना. अगर आपके पास हमारे से बेहतर निहारी आ गई तो someone's doing something wrong.
अच्छा, इसलिए he should come back if nothing else now. Nawaz Sharif should come back to bring the mojo back in Lahori nihari. Okay, so but on to more serious concerns. Janab, एक बात हो रही थी. You said the weather is better, the air is clearer. लाहौर का जो होता है winters में smog, उससे अल्लाह बचाए. But इतनी चीज़ों पे तुम बोल रहे हो इतने सालों से. You've been speaking on so many things, and I'm curious, why haven't you spoken up more about the environment?
It's something that I'm learning about. I don't think, I remember Al Gore after he lost the presidency in 2001 or 2, I can't remember, around that time.
Gore lost to Bush in 2000.
Yeah, right. And I remember then there was this awareness that had started coming out. People were being educated about it. There were documentaries coming out. But I'd never experienced anything like this till actually 2018. It was my first winter in Lahore. So 16 I got back, but 16 and 17, for some reason, I spent the winter in Dubai working. I had something, was there for 2-3 months. And 2018, this smog came. And I, being a Lahori, thought it's fog and maybe it's come early. And I asked, we were driving in Defense, Barki ki side pe, which is behind the airport. It's a little open area. The fog gets very intense. So just imagine the smog. And my friend got out of the car and he ran back in. And he said, I can't breathe. And his eyes were watering. So I was like, what? He's like, it's not fog. It's the smog. And I was like, I didn't know about it.
Smog kya hoti hai?
Kya hota hai? Kahan se aayi hai? What are you talking about? And then now... We're in 2023, 5 years I've been living in it. And I don't know, the trouble is, what should I say? Like I keep talking about the air quality, right? I have Twitter. It's my only platform that I have that, social media or whatever. And I keep talking about the air quality.
You also have the Daily Times, but
I can't interfere in that.
Achha, okay. Good to know. That was a trick question. Well done.
No.
Okay.
Daily Times is my father's legacy, and he never wanted any of us to interfere in it. It's an independent newspaper.
So there's a church and state divide.
My good friend Qasim Gilani, and this is a direct dig at you, tweeted to me today and said, Daily Times has become a mouthpiece of the PTI, but my 3 editors, one is PPP, Dure, Kazim is Kaf League, and Hassan is PTI. So it's not a mouthpiece for one paper, right? 3 editors with 3 opposing opinions. But right now, I feel like it's the only paper that's speaking about like जो लोगों के दिलों में, only because the owners don't interfere. And the only time the owners interfere is when someone is giving you money, right? And for opinion. And we don't do that at the Daily Times.
Good to know. But coming back to about your platforms, you were saying.
So I don't, it's one thing I can scream, right? And say, oh my God, there's no air. But what are the ministers, the provincial ministers and the people in charge of Lahore, is there even a single thing that they've done? Because from 2018 till today, it's an apocalypse. Like it's you should see Lahore. It's not even funny anymore, yaar. When you fly out of Lahore, all the way up to Multan, you are in this black haze. And you can see my halat. This is not, I'm not sick.
ये tear gassing से हुई है या smog से हुई है?
थोड़ी सी, मतलब it didn't help. The tear gas didn't help. But we have to do something.
So you're learning about it yourself, and you've been shocked
I don't
about
think
it.
There's any more time to learn. So
Good.
I'm actually going to. What you're saying, I think it's very important. I think there's no more time to learn. They've wiped. I have this uncle called Tariq Kaisar who's working on. He's the only guy I think working for the mangroves in Karachi. You are a population of about 20 million people in the city, and this one man more. And this one man alone is fighting in this city for the mangroves, but people don't even know about it. He's got documentaries and in Lahore, they have wiped out all your agricultural land and made it into Beria towns and things like this. Go further up to the north. In Kalam, you had this beautiful forest. I think it was called the Wushu forest or Ushu forest. I can't remember. It was one of the most magnificent forests, I say, anywhere in the world. Because the north of Pakistan is actually, you can't even compare other places in the world to it. And it's 75% of it is wiped out. We are destroying this country.
So if I were to ask you, Shahbaz Taseer, कि इतनी तुमने जो पिछले अपने कुछ सालों में चीज़ें देखी हैं, you've seen your father being killed by extremism, you've been a victim of terrorism, जिस पार्टी से आपकी फैमिली ताल्लुक़ रखती है उसका जो किस पॉलिटिकल मसले मसाइल से गुजरी है, इतने बहुत इश्यूज़ हैं जो तुमने खुद देखे हैं. Would it be fair to say, would you agree with me if I say कि हमारे बहुत सारे मसले हैं, हमारा शिया सुन्नी मसला है, हमारा जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी का मसला है, हमारा इनकम इनइक्वालिटी का मसला है, हमारे सूबों का मसला है, हमारी ज़ुबान का मसला, लासानियत का मसला है. But is it fair to say, considering पिछले साल क्या हुआ है फ्लड्स में, is it fair to say कि मेरे हिसाब से इस वक्त शायद सबसे बड़ा मसला environment है and nobody's talking about it? Would you agree with me?
Environment and economy, and they're directly linked. the floods, the devastation that the flood caused, your crop, your economy has been severely affected by it, right? Both of these are critical. And and we are at the brink as far as both are concerned. And it goes from like right up from the Himalayas all the way down to Karachi. If you don't have people in positions of power who are taking educated decisions to steer this country out of this mess, you've got examples right next door and right next door to that, and you can go all the way up to Syria and all the way down to Yemen. You can start from Afghanistan and just make your way up and down. Failed states, anarchy, political chaos, economic downfall, and my environment is not even on their list anymore. This country needs serious reform, like very serious reform, especially as far as things like the environment are concerned. There are a few things that are very simple, like deforestation. You can pass laws, but the PTI and the KPK is overlooking these mafias. But how else are they doing it? Everyone is equally involved in this. And the thing is, I asked my mother this. I asked her a few days ago because I had to put my daughter on a drip, and she's 6 years old. So I said, Mama, how many times do you remember me as a child ever going on a drip? I don't remember that I ever needed a drip.
I don't think I've ever been on a drip.
Right?
Yeah.
So she said, I don't remember. Why has my 6-year-old child been on a drip about 40 times? Why is this happening? And Uncle Tariq said something really interesting about the mangroves. He said, it's my fault because I didn't educate my children, so that generation is lost. I'm now fighting for my grandchildren. If I don't fight, they won't have anything in Pakistan to inherit.
I want to close things down with a couple of issues. Firstly, besides the climate catastrophe, which we've all witnessed, the one thing which I must admit, and I wrote about this a few years ago, your father. Now, I was there in F6 when those 27 rounds rang out. I was writing a report. Dopair ka waqt tha, lunch ka waqt tha. And I just heard it. I was 3 streets away. I just heard it ring. And the little that I know about automatic weapons, nobody just fires 27, almost a whole clip. In fact, pura shayad mag nikal gaya tha.
Pura mag tha.
Pura mag koi nahi nikalta. That's not how you fire a weapon unless you're enraged.
Yeah.
And few minutes later, I was there, and by the time I got there, I saw him being hauled out. I just interviewed him a few days before. In fact, the last time I'd met him was the last time I met you. I was in Lahore earlier that winter. I went on to dedicate I was about to leave for Harvard, so I dedicated my tenure at Harvard to studying this death, to studying the effects of the blasphemy law in social media, in digital media, and in the mainstream press. Your sister was not too impressed with a bit of my writing, and she reached out to me after my paper was published. But I must admit, besides the critique, I think he was one of the bravest men I've ever met, and I've met a few. But jo issue hai, sabse bada, I'd like to hear from you as well. In a lot of ways, I hold that interview which he had with Meher Bukhari responsible for poisoning.
I hold her responsible.
For poisoning, I'm sorry?
I hold her responsible.
Yes, for poisoning the mind of that killer. I think you cannot shout fire in a crowded theater. Ek hamare journalist ka ek asool hai. And it was something which that interview crossed the line. Studies have been done about it. Debates have been done about it.
She's actually very unapologetic about it as well.
I'm quite shocked because she seems quite reasonable. But मेरी महर से directly इस पे बात नहीं हुई. तुम्हारी हुई है इस issue पे कभी?
We went to school together, so imagine imagine how I feel. And put this facade on TV aside. Exactly the same. I think my father even turned around and said to her, "You're asking me if I'm a Western slave wearing jeans and a t-shirt? Meher,
क्या हो गया?
क्या हो गया?"
But coming back, I want to rest the. आज भी they say there's a threat upon your life. आज भी they say the Tasirs are under pressure because of the behemoth which has now stood. His death inspired a lot of us to fight against the blasphemy law, but his death also inspired many to support it. और वो आज तक वो जो law है वो खड़ा हुआ है और उसमें कोई amendments नहीं हुई और उसके अभी भी victims हैं. So I want to be very careful here and have your views without, of course, endangering your life or mine about that law. What do you actually think of it?
Well, it's really funny because I just had this conversation with a very senior member of government because we were debating the Tosha Khana case. And he said, look, there's a law, right? And that allows us to purchase these items at a 20% whatever, the price of it. And FPR does the valuation, to which I turned around and said to him, just explain something to me. I have a public limited company and I'm bound by the SCCP to have an international audit firm go over my accounts. Are you saying that I have more credibility than the government of Pakistan? He said, look, it's a law. I said, it is a law. Let me explain something to you. I'm a common person. I'm a businessman or whatever, but I'm not a politician, right? So I'm not in your league of people. But when even someone like me, who has privilege and opportunity and buying power to buy these things that you're buying at 10% discount at full price, when I see this, it disgusts me. It doesn't disgust me because there's a law that allows you to do it. It just makes me wonder that I live in a country with 220 million people, of which maybe 160 are, under the middle class, line. And you have laws here that can put an innocent Christian woman in jail without a lawyer representing her and have the governor of Punjab murdered for raising his voice for her. And yet you can go to the Tosha Khana and buy a gift for 10% and you want to know why this country has lost its, marbles and is completely does not, no civilian can see anything common with any politician, military man or judge anymore. There's a divide, okay? And it doesn't matter if you're a rich civilian or a poor civilian, there's just a divide now. If there are laws in this country that allow billionaires like Nawaz Sharif and Shahid Khaqan Abbasi and Miftah Ismail, and I have a lot of respect for them, but they knew what they were doing when they bought those watches. Okay? Like I would know what I was doing if I got that opportunity. And they should have said no. Okay? They should have said no. These same men who allow these 10-20% purchases sit over and don't debate or amend laws that persecute Pakistanis, and they come on social media and give explanations for why they should buy watches for 20% of their value. It's disgusting. Just like the law.
Last question. Inspired by...
Sorry.
Inspired
I hope
by...
I didn't endanger your life.
No. That's you answered it well. Last question. Your father, when he was imprisoned, Zia ke daur mein, for being a jala, your father smuggled a note out to your mother. And that is how your book starts. That became your call to arms for yourself. I am not made of a wood that burns easily. I wish we had that strength, but tell me more about that. Tell me more about what that means to you through those years of captivity, through now, where perhaps we all need a little bit of strength to survive the days that are ahead, considering the economy, society, politics at large.
A lot of people ask me where did I get these survival instincts or the strength to go through some of the trials and that I faced. And they're all from Abba's stories. I remember when I was being starved, something came in my head, and I remembered Abba once I was eating a steak and he was looking at me like with disgust in his eyes, and because I was eating like really quickly, and he's like, when I was doing my chartered accountancy, I was just 16 years old. I had nothing, and I was living in the YMCA on one Mars bar. I used to eat half of it in the day and half of it at night, and look at you. And I was just like, would you like a second one now? And then he had these stories, like he told me when I was in solitary confinement, all I had was the Quran. And it used to give me hope. Okay? And again, somewhere through my imprisonment, I found the Quran and it became my hope. But one story that it wasn't his story. It was actually my parent. It was their love story. They had a love marriage. They loved each other. They had this beautiful relationship, a friendship. My father used to play the most hilarious pranks on my mother. We were sitting in an expensive restaurant in London and right next to the window, and her back was towards it, and suddenly he came in the back, and started doing these mirror things and making faces, and the whole restaurant was laughing, but she didn't realize why till she turned around and realized it's her husband. So they had this, when he used to be down or stressed out, she would come in. You know how relationships are. And so when he was in solitary confinement, he had a few murder cases on him from Ziaul Haq. And when he was going in, he told my mother, I think it'll be difficult. This will be difficult. They've got me now. One of the cases was trying to blow up the Punjab Assembly. So it's very funny, when I got arrested on suspicion of terrorism, he said, hey, so did I. You were trying to blow up a commercial plane. Mujhe to Punjab Assembly udane wala tha. So,
that story's in your book too.
So my mother hadn't heard from him for months. So he got this note smuggled to her. The note basically, it said, I'm not made from a wood that burns easily. And it was her hope. She said, he's strong. And he was in a very difficult position. And sometimes, when things have ended for you, and I knew that feeling, the only thing that you can do is tell the people that you love that it's okay. It's a very difficult thing to do. A lot of people are afraid of death and scream and forget all the people behind them, right? So when I spoke to my mother for the first time, in the story that I was telling you where I forgot her voice, my kidnapper had told me, if she doesn't pay the ransom, I'm going to kill you. And he was playing a trick on me. But I'd spent the night wondering, what will I say to my mother that will get her, somehow, the government of Pakistan to pay these people 4 billion rupees and 25 militants, even though they've been negotiating for 6 months and got nowhere. What will I be able to do? And obviously I realized very early on, nothing. So most likely I'm going to die in the morning. So the first thing I said to Mama was, don't watch a single video that they send you. Don't watch it. And just know that I'm with my father and I'm made from the same wood as him. And, I'll get emotional about it. And that's all I said. And she's like, shut up. You're not going to die. Nothing's going to happen to you. I've left you in Allah. She was very angry that there's a voice on the other line that feels like he won't make it. And it was offensive to her. She was offended by it. So she said, if you're not made from a wood that burns easily, then don't burn. I'm going to get you out of here. So, it was the only thing I could say to my mother. And if you speak to her, and by the way, you said you don't get a lot of, you haven't gotten any women from Lahore or something, you said? You should get her on. Amazing. She never speaks about these things, but her vault of stories, whether it's Abba's incarceration or mine, is just unbelievable. And it just takes a lot of determination to actually be talking to these evil people and look them in the eye and tell them, you will not touch my son. And she did that. They said, we'll tell you where to pick up the body. And she said, I'll tell you where to pick up the bodies. It'll be body for bodies. And even he thought, I was sitting on the other line thinking, this woman's mad, she's playing with my life. But this was her determination. She just, zero. She refused to give up. There was never, and my brother and my sister will tell you this. If you ever speak to them, there were times that everybody broke down. There were times that an ISI agent came to my house to tell my mother, your son is dead. He has died in a drone strike. And she looked at him with people breaking down behind her and said, show me his body or leave. 6 months, no communication. Would get a video, flesh being pulled out of my back. And I have to tell you this, it had been 8 months since I spoke to her when I called her from Kuchlak. And in 25 minutes, that woman's wits, her brain, it's very difficult. Your son calls you and says, I've escaped, I'm on my own, pick me up in kuch luck. What do you do? But her wits were such that she executed this plan, man. She got me rescued from there. The army can tell you they did it, the ISI can tell you they did it, the MI, I tell you my mother did it, man. She called them, told them how to do it, what to do, who's the guy, where is he, silently, quietly, whatever. And I just remember when I was put into that car, the general I was telling you about, who my mother has praise for all the time, his name is General Aftab. And I just met him on the motorway for the first time, by the way. He just came up to me and gave me a hug, and he's like, I'm General Aftab. So General Aftab was my mother's strength through these years. Anything she needed. And he got transferred to Quetta in my 3rd year of my kidnapping. And my mother cried, and she said, General Saab, koi meri madad nahi karta, sirf aap the. And he said, Bibi, main idhar hi hu. Main Quetta mein hu, main kidhar hu, aap, my phone I will find your boy. I will do what I have to do. And imagine, of all the places in the world, I landed up in Kuchlak. She knew who to call, General Aftab. 1 second. He said, 25 minutes is going to take me to get to Kuchlak. Just sabr. And the first thing, he put me in the car and he looked at me. He was on the phone and he's like, son, what wood are you made out of? And I was like, I'm not made out of wood, I'm made out of solid steel. So they all burst out laughing. And he's like, no, you need to answer this because everybody here thinks you might be like an agent or a sleeper agent, or are you Shabazz Taseer or are you not? So I was like, I'm not made from a wood that burns easily. And they were like, we got our guy. And and then they put me on the phone with my mother, and she just kept saying to me that, she was saying, I love you. And she was like, you are not made from a wood that burns easily. So
Shabazz Taseer, definitely your father's son. A memoir of faith, family, and 5 years in terrorist captivity. Has been out for a couple of months. Possibly the most riveting thing I've read in a while. You can't put it down once you pick it up. It is like Pringles, except it's in pages. Give it a shot. It's available everywhere.
Yeah.
And I am lucky to have a signed copy. I hope you do some book shows or something. I know you're doing one now. Rush to your nearest bookstore. Highly recommend it. इसमें बहुत सारी चीजें हैं.
It's got a happy ending, by the way. The guy makes it.
Happy ending है, मगर अगर आप मैनचेस्टर यूनाइटेड फैन हैं तो ये बुक ना पढ़ें. Thank you. इसी के साथ ही पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद.
I will get you back for this one.
Pakistan जिंदाबाद.